Welcome to my podcast. If you are listening to this from my YouTube channel, welcome to my YouTube channel. And I am just a girl in South Africa, a girl who needs to let some things out, who really needs to talk about some things. And the kind of things that I'd like to talk about, I think at this stage of my life, they require me to remain anonymous. And so today, as I start this journey that I don't know where it's gonna lead, but I'm hoping it's also gonna be therapeutic for me or help anyone else out there who is maybe in a similar situation or similar circumstances. And what I mean by similar circumstances is more specifically talking about family dynamics. And what I've come upon for the past couple of days, not even past couple of days, weeks, maybe it's been weeks now, what the Lord has dropped into my spirit, what the Lord has revealed, is that I actually grew up in a family of narcissists. And mainly it was my mom and my sister who were and still are narcissists. And I still live with them, unfortunately. And I didn't know this for the longest time. I didn't even know what narcissism is. And what I prayed for this year was direction. I wanted my life to have direction. I wanted the Lord to direct my steps, to direct my life. And whenever we say a prayer or ask something from God, we never anticipate. We never know actually what that entails. And part of God directing me, what it entailed for me this year was uncovering and realizing some things about my family. From a very young age, I actually knew, I felt that there was just something not right. I've always been very insecure, very anxious, and always felt like I had to prove myself to my mother. I had to fight for her love. And even though at that age I couldn't articulate that, I couldn't understand that, I couldn't say it, I couldn't put my finger on it, I knew it wasn't right. I remember this one time because I used to write poems or spoken word type of material, and I recited it to my family, specifically my mother and my sister. And till this day, I remember that reaction of just like, oh yeah, that's cool, but like yeah, it was and this is the crazy and frustrating thing about narcissism is that it's in subtle things that other people wouldn't pick up on, or even you yourself you wouldn't pick up on. Okay, you know what, let's start by firstly defining what narcissism is according to the web, in case you also have never really understood what this means. Wait, I'm just looking it up right now on the internet because it just hit me that maybe you also not really aware or fully understand what narcissism is, because I didn't. I knew of it, but I don't think I fully understood it. It says narcissism is self-centeredness arising from failure to distinguish the self from external objects. Another definition is selfishness involving a sense of entitlement, a lack of empathy, that's a big one, and a need for admiration, and a need for admiration. So that one is perfect. Like sense of entitlement, self-centered, lack of empathy. They, for me, it almost feels like they're disconnected from their emotions. Or maybe not even specifically their emotions, but other people's emotions. They cannot truly understand or empathize with other people, essentially. And that is how my family has been. That is how my mother has been. And it has been hard to digest this because for the longest time, I did not think, it never crossed my mind that my own mother would not be able to sympathize with me, to empathize, to to mm, to be there for me emotionally. And when I started varsity, I think I had that sense of relief of going away from home and being separated from that space, no longer being in that space, even though I didn't know, even at that time, that um, there was something unhealthy. It was a toxic environment and it was an emotionally abusive environment that I was in. So when I went to varsity, I saw myself just being different because I was a very angry child. I had a lot of anger issues. I was very moody. But now I understand why. It's because I never felt loved. I never felt supported. I never felt seen or heard by my mother. And I'm not even going to put it so much so on my sister because she was also young. But there's also like a lot going on there. And maybe that's going to be an episode of its own. But I never felt those motherly traits towards me from my own mother. And so when I left home for the very first time in my life, I came back home different. And they could also tell that I was different. I wasn't as moody. I was lighter. I was maybe perhaps happier. And so I got a little bit better living with other people, being in a different environment. I I started being better. But fast forward to a couple of years later where my my internship ends and I come back home, and it's been a couple of years now since I've been back home and I'm staying with my family again. And all these things, they start resurfacing. And even as I started living with my family again, I still didn't know that it was a case of narcissism. It's actually a personality disorder. It's actually an illness. It's a mental issue, honestly, in my opinion. I think it's also a mental issue. So I still didn't know that. But as time has went by, the Lord just kept revealing things to me because um, coming back to live here at home full time after being away for so long, I I knew I just wanted things to be different because one of the things that my family doesn't mind is letting me be the doormat. They don't mind. They do not mind that. And this is done in subtle ways. Maybe sometimes it's not so subtle, but it's never something as dramatic as to say, yeah, you are, I don't know, like you are whatever we want you to be, or like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's not so obvious that you are being taken advantage of. That's the frustrating part. It's not that obvious. This is why it's hard to even explain it to other people because it's not that obvious, but it's something that hurts and that is so damaging. Why did I say damaging? That's damaging. I guess I can't say the word damaging. Damaging, yes. And so coming back home, I knew I had to do things differently. For instance, I was always the one who took things upon myself to, if something is not done, if something is not right here at home, I was the one who always just had to fill that space, fill that gap, be the responsible one, be the mature one. And they didn't mind me playing that part because obviously it benefits them. It benefited my sister, it benefits my mother. So back to narcissism being about selfishness and being a self-centered person. That's how my mother is. She's so self-centered, so self-centered. So much so that I now realize that my whole upbringing, it has been about making her happy, satisfying her needs, and it has never been about me, the child, her daughter. It has never been about us, even my sister included. But the reason I'm not really, I don't want to like put my sister in this because she hasn't fully realized what's going on. And also, she has adopted a lot of the narcissistic traits from my mother. And she has also been part of the pain that I've dealt with. So I know she's the way she is because we obviously had a narcissistic mother, a selfish, self-centered mother. And trust me, these are the things I would never say in public to her or anyone. That's one of the things about narcissism. Apparently, you're not supposed to confront them because it will escalate the matter. It will make it worse because they can never see your point of view. They can never allow themselves to be proved wrong or to be exposed because they always believe they are in the right. They're never in the wrong. They are always the victim. It's almost like you always want to hurt them. So this is not something you could ever tell a narcissist. Anyway, so I realized that my mother made everything about her. It was always about her. It was always about her and her needs. And even till this day, at my age, she is still the very same person who is so self-centered. And these are the things that in black families, most black families at least, these things are not really talked about. They're not really addressed because you should just respect your mother, right? And as a Christian, that's what the Bible says, like honor your parents, honor your mother and your father. That's just how it's supposed to be. And wow, part of the discovery process and journey that I'm in, because I'm listening to this amazing woman's podcast. I'm forgetting her name, but I think the podcast is called Mama Trauma Podcast. So in most black families, these type of things are not addressed. It's almost taken as something that should be accepted, something that should be tolerated, especially if it comes from your mother, because she's your mother and she raised you. And I was raised by a single woman, okay, who had no help, not even like from extended family members. It was only her, and she raised us. I can never take that away from her. She always managed to put the plate on the table, a roof on our heads, clothes on our backs. She did that. But that's the only thing she did for me. I never got any emotional care. She was never there for me emotionally. In fact, she actually destroyed my self-esteem. She was, and still is, jealous of me, jealous of us, my sister included. That's part of narcissism. Oftentimes, narcissists actually jealous people, envious people, because they believe that they are the ones who should always be on top. So you couldn't possibly be above or better than them. And it's a crazy thing to say that a mother thinks like that about her daughters. It's a crazy thing to say, but it's true. It is true for a lot of mothers. And so I am in this journey, I am in this process of discovering all of that, and it's so painful because a result of being around or brought up by a narcissist is dealing with things like severe anxiety, low self-esteem, constantly doubting yourself because you were never good enough. You never felt good enough. She always made sure that you were not good enough. She always made me feel like I was never good enough, no matter how hard I tried. I look back at my childhood, I look back at my life, and all I see is me constantly fighting for my mother's love. The mother who did everything else for me, took me to school, bought me anything I needed for school, tried her best. There was a time where my mother was struggling. She didn't have a permanent job. Money was an issue, but she did her best to always feed us, clothe us, take us to school. That is the mother that I'm talking about. And I'm grateful for that. I am, because other people didn't have that. But that doesn't take away from the fact that I never got a mother who truly cared and loved me. Sometimes I think maybe she only did it out of duty, or maybe she only did it out of other people's perception that, that's what a mother's supposed to do, or how are other people going to view you if you don't do this. At this point, I'm questioning everything. Grateful as I am for the fact that she did those things, which are also a necessary part of life. I thank God that I always had food on my table. I thank God that I always had clothes on my back and I went to school. I am grateful for those things. But the emotional pain, it almost erases it. And that is even just crazy for me to say, but the emotional pain, the emotional torture, the emotional abuse, which is so subtle, which is so hard to spot. But once you start thinking about it and looking back, you can build a case. You can build a case other people might not want to believe, because people want to live in their bubble of a, a, a sense of reality where, your mother couldn't possibly be that bad, because obviously your mother is supposed to love you. I mean, I wouldn't say my mother doesn't love me, but I wouldn't say she loves me. I don't even know how to put that. But I know she doesn't necessarily like me. Like I said, she's jealous of me, envious, tries to bring me down. Oh my goodness, it's in the little things. Sometimes when I look good and I'm feeling myself, she will just make a snarky comment, something that's just gonna bruise me. It'll be, it will be, it will be something so small, but it will scar me. It will wound me. Until today, at this stage of my life, I am working on so many issues that are rooted on how I was raised by my mother. Low self-esteem, anxiety. It even got to a point of depression. having this void, this void feeling in me, feeling like I'm not good enough, feeling like I have to work so hard to prove myself, even to other people, not only to her, because I've gotten used to working for her love and proving myself to her, so much so that I do it to other people, whether it be friends, it be colleagues, it be a partner. I still do that. And I have that feeling that I'm just not good enough. I'm not good enough. It's never enough. You just never good enough, because that's how my own mother made me feel. And in my case, it definitely didn't help that my sister was also just part of that. And so these are the type of things that I want to talk about, that I want to vent about, that I want to share, hoping that somebody who is in the same situation can also start to deal with that, because I'm in the process of healing. I haven't completely healed. I'm not even sure if I've forgiven her or them, my sister included. Let's remember that. She's also part of the problem. But for my sister, I understand, because I understand where it comes from, but it's also hard to take it from her, because I feel like we should have at least had each other's backs, but that wasn't the case, and it still really isn't. And the most frustrating, there's so many frustrating parts about this, is that whenever you try to communicate how you feel, or how something made you feel, or how maybe a certain comment or incident, how it made you feel, you are always made to feel like you are exaggerating, like you are too sensitive, too emotional, you took it too seriously. It wasn't like that. And it's never said directly like that. My mother or my sister, they've never explicitly said, oh, you're too sensitive, oh, you're too emotional. That's why I'm saying it's subtle things. It's the way they make you feel. They might not say the words, they might not say you are stupid, but it's the way they make you feel. And that's how narcissists operate. Most of them, at least. Or at least the ones that I know. The two that I'm currently living with. They make you feel it. They make you beg and work for their love. They don't say it. It's nothing direct. That's why it's so hard to even talk to other people about this, because it feels like you don't have tangible proof of this. And then one of the things that they say, sometimes when I try to talk, I no longer want to try to talk about this, because I have now come to a point of realizing that talking to them doesn't help. They will never understand. And that's what I'm discovering through YouTube channels that I'm watching, podcasts that I'm listening to, blogs that I'm reading, that they probably will never change, and they can never really understand my point of view. They can never understand the pain that they have caused me and how much they have damaged my self-esteem. They can never truly understand that. So having a conversation with them about this is pointless. It is pointless. But one of the things that I've heard in times where maybe a conversation about maybe how I felt about something, or how I didn't like something, it was one of the things that would come up would be how much they love me, or that, like maybe my sister saying, I'm your sister, I love you, I would never hurt you, or my mother saying the same thing, I'm your mother, nobody will ever love you more than me, I would never do that. It's part of their manipulation, because then in your mind you're also thinking, oh yeah, but like, she's my mother, of course she wouldn't want to hurt me. Yeah, she's my sister, of course she doesn't want to hurt me. She must have not meant it. Must have been a mistake. A mistake done for years. That's another thing with narcissists. There's a pattern, a long-lasting pattern. I'm not talking about somebody who said one wrong thing or maybe was mean to you that one time. I'm talking about a pattern, records of how they've been to you and how they continue to be. That's what I'm talking about. And so they throw this line of course I love you. You're my sister. Of course I love you. You're my child. So I would never try to hurt you, try to do this intentionally, yada, 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 yeah. I have heard it all my life. So I am working through so many things. I am asking God to help me to heal, to forgive them. A part of me thinks that maybe one day we might not even end up talking to each other because I'm fed up. I am fed up. A part of me thinks that I'm just going to have a breaking point where I just no longer want to take this. And to other people, it might seem like it's exaggerated. It might seem like that is not a good enough reason to no longer have a relationship with your family or be disconnected with your family simply because sometimes they say hurtful things. This is why I'm saying people prefer to live in this bubble of their reality where it's okay for people to just say hurtful things or to stay in an unhealthy relationship with your family simply because they are your family. And what the Lord has been speaking into my heart is that what matters is my relationship with Him. What matters is my relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ. And if it means my family and we don't have a relationship on this earth because part of them hurting me, destroying my self-esteem, it's affecting my purpose and my mission that Christ has for me. So I am left in a position where I have to choose between my family and Christ. And the Bible says, Jesus says, if you love your mother or your father or your family more than me, you are not worthy of me. So my family does not take precedence above, like they are not above Christ. So because of what they do, what they say, it affects my self-esteem. It then affects my purpose that Christ has for me because I cannot fulfill that purpose when I'm beaten down emotionally. So it essentially affects my relationship with Christ. So a part of me thinks maybe one day it will get to that. And it's so crazy because people know us, the three of us, as the closest people in the world. Like, wow, your mother loves you guys. Or like, wow, you and your sister are so close. That's the perception that the world has of us. The world, how dramatic, that people have of us. Anyway, let me leave it here for now.